Okay, this is part 3 of chapter 2 units and measurement of class 11. Okay, in part 2 we have studied the dimensions of few physical quantities. Okay, now in this part we'll discuss the applications of dimensional analysis and few limitations also. Okay, the applications of dimensional analysis, in which the first one is to check the correctness of any given equation. To check the correctness of a equation, which we use it in physics. So to check the correctness of an equation. So the any equation which we are using in physics, it should be dimensionally correct. Okay, dimensionally, to be dimensionally correct, the dimensions on the left hand side should be equal to the dimensions of the terms on the right hand side. So the dimensions on the left hand side should be equal to the dimensions of the terms on the right hand side. Let's take an example and we'll understand by this example. We know that the first equation of motion is V is equal to U plus AT. Okay, as we see that on the left hand side there is only one term V, which is the final velocity, whereas on the right hand side there are two terms U plus AT. U is the initial velocity plus A into T. A is the acceleration and T is the time. So in order that this equation to be dimensionally correct, the dimensions of the terms on the left hand side should be equal to dimension of each term on the right hand side. Now let's see the dimensions on the left hand side, dimensions of the term on the left hand side, that is V. Okay, as we know that it is velocity, and velocity has a dimension m0 L t raised to the power minus 1. So the dimension on the left hand side is m raised to the power 0, L raised to the power 1, t raised to the power minus 1. Now let's check the dimensions on the right hand side. Dimensions of the terms on right hand side. Okay, on right hand side there are two terms U plus AT. So each term should have the same dimension. We know that the dimension of U is, which is the initial velocity, the same dimension as that of velocity, that is Lt minus 1, plus acceleration. Acceleration has got a dimension Lt raised to the power minus 2 and the time has a dimension t. Okay, so this is equal to Lt raised to the power minus 1 plus t raised to the power minus 2 plus 1. This also becomes Lt raised to the power minus 1. So there are two terms on the right hand side, and each term should have the same dimension as that on the left hand side. Okay, then we say that the equation is dimensionally correct. So this equation is dimensionally correct. Why? Because the dimensions on the left hand side is equal to the dimensions on the right hand side. Okay, so here the total dimension will be m0 L t raised to the power minus 1. Okay, so this we will not write it as Lt raised to the power minus 1 plus Lt raised to the power minus 1 as 2Lt raised to the power minus 1, because this may be 30 units, this may be 40 units, okay, or this may be 20 units, this may be 30 units. So the dimension of each term on the right hand side should be the same as the dimension of the left hand side. Let's take one more example. We know that the second equation of motion is S is equal to ut plus half at square, where S is the distance traveled, U is the initial velocity, A is the acceleration and T is the time. Let's see the dimensions on left hand side, dimension of the term on left hand side, which is S, and we know that as it is the distance, it has got a dimension L. So each term on the right hand side should have the dimension L. Then only this equation is dimensionally correct. Now let's see the dimension of the terms on right hand side. Right hand side there are two terms ut plus half at square. u is the initial velocity which has got the dimension of velocity lt raised to the power minus 1. T is the time which has the dimension capital T. Half is dimensionless. Okay, it has got no dimension. Acceleration has got a dimension L T raised to the power minus 2 into T square. So it has got a dimension T square. So here we see that the dimension on the right hand side of the first term ut is L, and of the second term half at square is also equal to L. So each term has got the same dimension as that on the left hand side. So this equation is dimensionally correct. Okay, now the equation which is dimensionally correct, not necessary that it is physically correct also. For example, if this equation is written as S is equal to ut plus 7 by 2 at square, if dimensionally you find out this equation is correct, but physically this equation is not correct. Why? Because the equation should be S is equal to ut plus half at square. So the equation which is dimensionally correct means the dimension on the left hand side should be equal to the dimension of each term on the right hand side. So then we say that the equation is dimensionally correct. So the equation which is dimensionally correct may not be physically correct, but a physically correct equation is always dimensionally correct. Any physically correct equation will be dimensionally correct. Dimensional formula terms can be added or subtracted in an equation. Different dimensions, the two terms having different dimensions can never be added or subtracted. Okay, like velocity can be added to velocity only. Acceleration can be added to acceleration only. Velocity cannot be added to force. Why? Because the velocity and force have got different dimensions. So the same dimensional terms only can be added or subtracted in any equation, and also the dimension of each term on the right hand side should be equal to the dimension on the left hand side. Then only we say that the equation is dimensionally correct. Now the second application is to derive the formula or to find the relation between the different physical quantities. Okay, so to derive a formula given that a physical quantity depends upon other physical quantities. So if we know that a given physical quantity depends upon other physical quantities, we can derive the formula of that physical quantity. Let's take an example. Let it is given that the time period of a simple pendulum, time period depends on the first term, mass of the bob. Okay, as we know that a pendulum is a heavy bob suspended by a light thread. Okay, let it is given that time period means the time taken to complete one oscillation, depends upon mass of the bob, let it depends upon the length of the pendulum, and let it also depends upon acceleration due to gravity. G is the acceleration due to gravity. Okay, now if it is depending upon these three terms, what is depending? Time period. So the time period T depends upon, it is depending upon mass raised to the power something which we have to determine. If we know the power of m, then we can find out the formula of time period. Let m is raised to the power a. It is also depending upon the length of the pendulum. Let its power is b. And it's also depending upon acceleration due to gravity, whose power is c. So time period of a simple pendulum is depending upon these three terms. Okay, so the power of which is not known. If we are able to find out the power of this, then we can derive the formula of this time period. So on equating it, some constant of proportionality comes. Let the constant of proportionality is k. M raised to the power a, L raised to the power b, G raised to the power c. Let us put it as equation number 1. Now we'll put the dimensions of each term over here. This is the time period, and as we know that the time period has got a dimensional formula m raised to the power 0, l raised to the power 0, t raised to the power 1. K is the constant, dimensionless constant, so it hasn't got any dimension. M is the mass, which has got a dimension capital M. L is the length, whose dimension is capital L. G is the acceleration due to gravity, whose dimension is L t raised to the power minus 2. Now our next step is to collect the power of M, L and T on the right hand side. What is the power of M on the right hand side? A. What is the power of L on the right hand side? B plus C. Power of T is minus 2C. Whereas on the left hand side it is M raised to the power 0, L raised to the power 0, T raised to the power 1. Now from here we can equate the powers of each one, that is of mass, length and time. So equating the power of mass, we get A is equal to 0. Equating the power of L on both the sides, we get B plus C is equal to 0. Equating the power of T, we get 1 is equal to minus 2C. So here we have to find out A, B and C and substitute it in equation number 1 to get the formula of time period. So let's find out ABC. We have got 3 equations and 3 unknown terms. So ABC can be determined. A is equal to 0 already here. From here C is equal to minus half. From the third equation C is equal to minus half. Okay, substitute C is equal to minus half over here. So B will be equal to plus half. So here we have got A, B and C. Now substituting in equation number 1. Substituting in equation number 1, we get T is equal to K, which is dimensionless constant. M raised to the power A here is 0. L raised to the power B here is plus half. G raised to the power C, which is minus half. So from this formula you can see that the time period is not depending upon the mass of the ball. Time period is only depending upon the length of the pendulum. Okay, and how is it depending? L raised to the power half. It's also depending upon the acceleration due to gravity. And how is it depending? G raised to the power minus half. So what is the formula for the time period? T is equal to K. This can be written as under root L upon G. So this is the formula for the time period. So knowing that the time period depends upon all these terms, we can find out the formula for the time period, which is K under root L by G. Let us take one more example. Let it is given that the centripetal force. Okay, what is centripetal force? The force which is acting towards the center of the circle. Such a force we call it as centripetal force, and it generally comes into play when the particle is moving in a circular motion. Let the centripetal force F depends on mass of the particle M. Okay, let it depends upon velocity V, and let it depends upon radius R. Now let's derive the formula of the centripetal force in terms of mass, velocity and radius. Okay, so here it is given that force depends upon mass, power of which is not known. Let us raise it to the power A. It depends upon velocity. Let its power is B. It also depends upon radius. Equating it, some constant of proportionality, M raised to the power A, V raised to the power B, R raised to the power C. Put it as equation number 1. Now our aim is to find out A, B and C and substitute it here so that we can find out the formula of centripetal force. So how we proceed? Substituting the dimensions of each term. Force as a dimension M, L, T raised to the power minus 2. K is again dimensionless constant. M has got a dimension capital M. Velocity has got a dimension L t raised to the power minus 1. R is the radius. Radius means some length. So L raised to the power C. Now the next step is to collect the power of m, l and t on the right hand side. So m is raised to the power a, l is raised to the power b plus c and t is raised to the power minus b. So here equating the powers of m, l and t will get 3 equations. We'll solve those 3 equations to get a, b and c and substitute in this equation. Okay, now equating the powers of m on both the sides. A is equal to 1. Equating the power of L, B plus C is equal to 1. Equating the power of B, minus B is equal to minus 2. Okay, solving these 3 equations to get A, B and C. A here is given as 1. Here, from here minus B is equal to minus 2. So B is equal to 2. Substitute B over here. So 2 plus C is equal to 1. So C is equal to 1 minus 2. That is C is equal to minus 1. Now substitute A, B and C in equation number 1. So we get the formula F is equal to K M raised to the power A, which is 1. V raised to the power B. B here is 2. R raised to the power C, which is minus 1. So force can be written as K mv square upon R is the formula of the force which we have derived in terms of mass, velocity and radius. Now the third application of dimensional analysis is to convert one system of units into another. To convert one system of units into another. Okay, that is, if we know the numeric value in one of the system, then we can find out the numeric value in the other system. Okay, we know that N1 U1 is equal to N2 U2, which we have already discussed, like 5 meters is equal to 500 centimeters. U1 is the unit in the first system, which has got some dimension. Let its dimension is M1 raised to the power A, L1 raised to the power B, T1 raised to the power C. N2 is the numeric value in the second system. U2 is the unit in the second system, which will have the dimension M2 raised to the power A, L2 raised to the power B, T2 raised to the power C. This is in the second system, this is in the first system. Okay, the powers will remain the same, like 5 meters is equal to 500 centimeters. Okay, so the power ABC of M, L and T will remain the same. Okay, from here we see that N2 is equal to N1, M1 upon M2 raised to the power A, L1 upon L2 raised to the power B, T1 upon T2 raised to the power C. Okay, by using this formula, we can find out the numeric value in any system of units if in the first system the numeric value and its unit is given. Let's take an example. Let we have to convert 1 Newton in CGS system of units. Let us convert 1 Newton into CGS system of units. So what is N1 U1 here? N1 U1 is 1 Newton. That is N1 is 1 and U1 is Newton, and U1 has got a dimension. Newton is the unit of force, and we know that the dimensional formula of force is mLT raised to the power minus 2. So Newton has got this dimension mLT raised to the power minus 2. Now let's find out A, B and C. A is the power of M. What is A over here? M has a power 1. B is the power of L, which is again 1, and C is the power of T, which is minus 2. Now we can find out the numeric value in the second system. Which is the second system? CGS system. Okay, substituting it over here, N2 is equal to N1 here is 1, M1 given over here is in the first system, that is in the SI system. Newton is the unit in SI system, and we know that the mass in SI system is kg. M2 is the mass in the system in which we have to find out. and in CGS system the mass is in grams. Raised to the power A here is 1. L1 is the length in SI system, Newton is in SI system, and we know that in SI system the length is measured in meter. L2 is the length in CGS system, in the second system. Second system is CGS system, and there the length is measured in centimeters. Raised to the power B. B again here is 1. T1 in the first system, T1 here is seconds, that is in SI system. The unit of time is seconds, and in CGS system also the time is measured in seconds. Raised to the power C. C here is -2. Okay, now convert it either kgs in grams or grams in kgs, whichever you find it convenient. 1 kg is equal to 1000 grams. So we can write it as 1 kg is 10 raised to the power 3 grams. 1 meter is equal to 10 raised to the power 2 centimeters. Here second upon second cancels out, so this becomes 1 raised to the power -2. So here grams and grams, centimeters and centimeters you can cancel out. So this becomes 10 raised to the power 3 plus 2, that is 10 raised to the power 5. So the numeric value in the CGS system is how much? 10 raised to the power 5. That is 1 Newton is equal to, the numeric value is 10 raised to the power 5, and in the CGS system the unit of force is taken as dyne. So 1 Newton is equal to 10 raised to the power 5 dyne, or here we will only find out N2, the numeric value in the second system. So N2 here is equal to 10 raised to the power 5. Okay, let's take one more example. Convert 4.2 joules into a system where the fundamental units are taken as alpha, where fundamental units are taken as alpha kg, beta meters and gamma seconds. So you have to convert 4.2 joules into a system where alpha kg is the fundamental unit, beta meter is the fundamental unit, and gamma seconds is the fundamental units. Okay, these are the symbols, alpha, all these are the Greek symbols. This is for alpha, beta, and this is for gamma. Okay, so what is N1 U1 given over here? N1 U1 is 4.2 joules. So N1 is 4.2 and U1 is joules. U1 has a dimension ml square t raised to the power -2. Let's find out A, B and C. A is the power of m, which is 1. B is the power of L, which is 2. C is the power of t, which is -2. Now use the formula. N2 is equal to N1, M1 upon M2 raised to the power A, L1 upon L2 raised to the power B, T1 upon T2 raised to the power C. Okay, so N2 is equal to, substitute the values, N1 is 4.2, M1 is the mass in the given system where the unit is joule, and we know that joule is the unit in SI system. So mass there is measured in kgs. M2 is the mass in the system where we have to find out. There the mass is given in alpha kgs. Raised to the power A here is 1. L1 is the length in SI system, which is meter. L2 is the length in the new system where it is beta meter raised to the power B. B here is 2. T1 is the time in the SI system, which we know is seconds, and T2 in the given system where it is gamma seconds raised to the power C, which is -2. Kg cancels out, same way meter and seconds you can cancel out. So what do you get? N2 is 4.2, 1 upon alpha. 1 upon alpha can be written as alpha raised to the power -1. 1 upon beta square. can be written as beta raised to the power minus 2. Okay, 1 upon gamma raised to the power minus 2 can be written as gamma square. So the numeric value in this given new system is 4.2 alpha raised to the power minus 1, beta raised to the power minus 2, gamma square. Okay, so these are the three applications of dimensional analysis. Let's study the limitations of dimensional analysis. The first limitation is it does not give any information about the dimensionless constant. Okay, does not give any information about dimensionless constant. For example, when we were discussing the second application, everywhere we put that dimensionless constant as k, like T is equal to k under root L by G. Then we derive the formula for the centripetal force. Again it is equal to k mv square upon r. So it is not giving any information about this dimensionless constant. Okay, this is found out experimentally. Okay, then the second one is we cannot derive the formula which is containing some trigonometric function or log function or exponential function. So formula cannot be derived, or also we cannot check the correctness of the equation. Formula cannot be derived of the equation which has trigonometric or log or exponential functions, because all these are dimensionless. Trigonometric functions, the log functions, exponential functions, all are dimensionless. So we cannot derive the formula which contains exponential functions or the trigonometric functions. And the third limitation is if any physical quantity is depending upon more than 3 physical quantities, then also its formula cannot be derived. So if a quantity depends on more than 3 physical quantities, then its formula cannot be derived. Why? Because if it is depending upon more than 3 physical quantities, how many equations will get? 3 equations. And how many unknown terms will be there? 4 unknown terms. So 4 unknown terms cannot be found out, cannot be determined by using 3 equations. Also, it is not giving any information about scalar or vector quantities. Okay, it does not give any information about scalar or physical quantities, that is whether the quantity is a scalar quantity or a physical quantity. Okay, what are scalar quantities? Which have only magnitude, and vector quantities are those which have magnitude as well as direction. So it doesn't give any information about scalar or vector quantities. So these are some of the limitations of dimensional analysis. Okay, next few questions here we'll discuss. Question number 1 is, let velocity is given as a plus bt plus ct square. Now here you have to find out the dimensions of a, b and c. Okay, according to the first application we have studied that the dimension on the left hand side should be equal to dimension of each term on the right hand side. That is, velocity should have a dimension, or you may say, or a should have a dimension of velocity. A should have a dimension of velocity, and we know that velocity has a dimension Lt minus 1. So the dimension of a is Lt raised to the power minus 1. The same way, velocity should have a dimension of b into t. So b should have a dimension of v upon t. B should have a dimension of v upon t. Why? Because velocity should have the same dimension of b into t. Now we know the dimensional formula of velocity, which is Lt raised to the power minus 1, and this t is the time. So it is Lt raised to the power minus 2. What is this quantity? B into t. It is the acceleration. We know that Lt raised to the power minus 2 is the dimensional formula of acceleration. The same way we can find out the dimension of C. Dimension of C should be equal to dimension of V upon T square. Dimension of V upon T square. Why? Because velocity and C into T square should have the same dimension. So the dimension of C should be equal to dimension of V upon T square. V has a dimension Lt minus 1. T square, it will be T raised to the power plus 2. So this will be equal to L T raised to the power minus 1 minus 2. This becomes L T raised to the power minus 3. Okay, question number 2. Let force is given by AT plus B into T square. And you have to find out the dimension of A and B. Okay, so again we know that the dimension of each term on the right hand side should be equal to the dimension of left hand side. So here A into T should have the dimension of force. So the dimension of A should be equal to the dimension of force upon time. A into T should have that same dimension of force. So the dimension of A will be equal to dimension of force upon time. Now you know the dimension of force, which is ml T raised to the power minus 2 upon T. So it becomes ml T raised to the power minus 2 minus 1 T raised to the power minus 3. The same way you can find out the dimension of B. Dimension of B should be equal to dimension of F upon T square. So it should be dimension of F upon T square. Force has a dimension mlt raised to the power minus 2. This is T square. So mlt raised to the power minus 4 is its dimensional formula. Okay, question number 3. Let displacement. Displacement is the shortest distance between initial and final position. This we are discussing in case of oscillatory motion, which you will study later on. I'll write the equation. Let the displacement is given by A sine omega t minus kx. Let this is the equation where A is the amplitude. Amplitude means the maximum displacement. T is the time. X is the distance or the displacement. Okay, now here you have to find out the dimension of omega and k. You have to find out the dimension of omega and k. Okay, we know that the argument of sine is always dimensionless. We have studied that sine theta is dimensionless. So this should be dimensionless. Here you can see that y is the displacement which has got a dimension capital L. A is the amplitude which is the maximum displacement. It has also got the dimension L. And this should be dimensionless. Okay. T is the time which has got a dimension capital T. So omega should have a dimension 1 upon T. Then only these dimensions will cancel out and this will become dimensionless. Similarly, kx should be dimensionless. So k should have a dimension of 1 upon x and x has a dimension L. So what are the dimensions of omega and k? Omega is having a dimension 1 upon t and k is having a dimension 1 upon L. Or you can write it as t raised to the power minus 1 and k is having a dimension L raised to the power minus 1. Okay, next question. The gas equation is given by van der Waals gas equation. P plus A upon V square. V minus B is equal to R into T. Where P is the pressure. V is the volume. R is the gas constant, universal gas constant. And T is the temperature. Okay, now here you have to find out the dimension of A and B. Dimension of A and B has to be determined. Okay, we know that only the same dimensional terms can be added or subtracted. here the pressure is added to A upon V square. So the pressure should have the same dimension of A upon V square. So in order to find out the dimension of A, we use only this term, forget about R into T. Okay, this A upon V square is added to pressure, so the dimension of pressure should be equal to dimension of A upon V square. So the dimension of A will be equal to dimension of P into V square. So the dimension of A here is equal to dimension of P multiplied by the dimension of V square. Okay, we know that P is the pressure, and what is the dimension of pressure? Pressure is force upon area. So its dimension is mLT raised to the power minus 2 upon L square. So L raised to the power 1 minus 2, it becomes L raised to the power minus 1 into the dimension of V square. V is the volume. Volume has got a dimension L cube. L cube, it is V square, so L cube square. So the dimension of A here we get it as m L raised to the power minus 1 plus 6. So L raised to the power plus 5 and T raised to the power minus 2 is the dimensional formula of A. The same way we can find out the dimension of B. Volume minus B, that is B is subtracted from V. So B should have the same dimension as that of V, and we know that the dimension of V is volume L cube. So what is the dimension of B? It is L cube. Let's discuss one last question. Let F, force, length and time, let us represent length by capital L. Force, length and time are taken as fundamental units. Then you have to find out the dimension of mass. Mass in terms of F, L and T are taken as fundamental units. Then find the dimension of mass. Dimension of mass in terms of F, L and T. So here mass is depending upon force, length and time. How is it depending? Let F is raised to the power A, length is raised to the power B and time is raised to the power C. Okay, the same way we'll proceed equating some constant, dimensionless constant. Now substitute the dimensions of each term. On the left hand side it is mass. So m, L raised to the power 0, T raised to the power 0, K is dimensionless, F is the force, and we know that force has got a dimension m, L, T raised to the power minus 2 raised to the power A, L is the length, T is the time. So the next step is to collect the power of m, L and T to the power A, and L is raised to the power A plus B, T is raised to the power minus 2A plus C. Now equating the powers of m, when we equate the power we get A is equal to 1. Equate the power of L, we get A plus B is equal to 0. Equate the power of T, we get minus 2A plus C is equal to 0. Using these three equations, we'll find out A, B and C. A here is 1 as A plus B is equal to 0. So B here is equal to minus 1. Okay, minus 2A, that is minus 2 plus C is equal to 0. So C here is equal to 2. Substituting in equation number 1, ABC, we have found out. So M is equal to some dimensionless constant K, F raised to the power A which is 1, length raised to the power B which is minus 1 and T raised to the power C. C here is plus 2. So mass we have got in terms of F, L and T, which is F into T square upon L is the formula of mass in terms of force, time and length. So few questions here we have discussed. Some NCERT questions we'll be discussing when we complete this chapter. Now in part 4, we'll be discussing significant figures and the errors, absolute error, relative error, percentage error. So we'll be discussing about the types of errors, okay, and how to determine the errors. Kindly subscribe to the channel so that you can watch the next parts also. Thank you.